Well, good morning, everyone. I just want to say it's a very early morning for me. I'm currently out in Barbados. I think it's 5:30 my time in the morning. So do bear with me as I'm starting to wake up and kick into action. Mark and Joanna and Luke, thank you so much for this invitation. So I think I just want to share with you a bit of a brief history of how this happened, how it happened that I'm running a cleaning business, and to just look at some of the ethos that has weaved through that as we've gone through over the last 8 years. So I started Just Helpers in 2013, just before I met Mark. And it was really supposed to be a side hustle. I'd taken this job. It was an amazing job. It was like my dream job, working part-time for this anti-trafficking organization based in Merton, as Mark has said. And it was a massive salary drop. So I'd been a teacher before that. I taught PE for around 12 years up until that point. And God had really called me over a number of years to give that up, to sell my house, and to get involved in the anti-trafficking movement. And that's a whole nother story for another day, but think Jonah, and then you can kind of understand my journey into that. And I loved being a secondary school teacher. Like, I literally thought that was my calling until the day that I was going to die. But fast forward to this season, I'd had to take a massive salary cut to start with this anti-trafficking organization, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I've always loved cleaning for friends and family. And so, when I was thinking about what else can I do that's going to be unobtrusive, that's going to give me space to build this charity, cleaning over a number of conversations with somebody else kind of came to bear. So that was fine. But the trouble with the cleaning business was that it just kept growing. It just kept growing. And I didn't understand why. I'm not a natural, I should say, let me dispel that. I wasn't a natural business owner back then. I was great at teaching. It turned out I was great at growing a charity, but business really wasn't my bag at all. But one of the things that I found that I loved was this sense of knowing that I'd made a tiny impact in somebody's day every time I cleaned a house. And just that joy of knowing around about 7 or 8 o'clock when somebody got home, that they were really kind of getting that, oh my goodness, isn't it wonderful to be home feeling. So that was one of the first bits of motivation. And I think right from the get-go, in fact, in everything I do, something that my mum had always taught me, which was, in everything you do, you're doing it for God. You're doing it as if God were watching. So it doesn't matter that somebody's not home while you're cleaning their home. It's all about what can God see you doing. It doesn't matter how menial the task, how small the task, how insignificant somebody might feel. Excellence is crucial in all areas of your life. And so I think that that's why the business grew exponentially initially. People weren't expecting me to rock up to their house and give it a clean. So my passion for justice and fairness and good working conditions kind of underpinned the business really from the beginning. So fairness, first of all, for my clients when it was just me. And then the business, as I said, grew very quickly. Within 3 months, I was full and I'd got these other commitments. Like, my main game was the anti-trafficking charity. And I kind of had to keep reminding myself that. And after about 3 months, I was turning down clients and just saying, well, this isn't a thing. I'm full now. I've ticked my box. And after about 5 months, I had clients pleading with me on a personal level, like, please, can you clean for my parent, or can you clean for my aunt, or can you clean for my sister? And I kind of kept saying, well, no, I'm full. But then my favorite client asked, and I just thought, okay, I have to find a solution here. Her little sister was moving to London, and I really wanted to help. And so I took somebody on to work alongside with me so that eventually we could double down on the number of clients, but it would still keep my hours the same and keep releasing me to do my charity work. And so from that moment when I took my first person on to work with me, we were two self-employed people at that point. It just seemed fair to me to pay her exactly the same, to split the money in the middle and give her half of what I was earning in every house that we cleaned. And that's when I realized that this was a really surprising thing. So for her, she was really shocked that that would happen. And for me, I was really shocked that that wouldn't happen. And I guess I started to learn that more and more with more people that I took on. So after about 9 months, I had 3 ladies that worked with me, and had to start releasing them to work with their own clients. And again, I just thought, well, if I'm prepared to go to work for X, then I can't expect these women to go to work for any less. And because of the world that I was in, the anti-trafficking world that I was in, I also knew that what happens to people when they're forced to make choices through poverty can be devastating, can literally be life transforming in a really negative way. And so, you know, this is kind of the chalk face of all the theory that I was learning and talking about and campaigning for. But it took me a few years to really, really recognize that. So from the beginning, pay and working conditions were pretty much exactly the same. Whatever I was doing for me, I would do for the other ladies. And then as time evolved, I realized that I had a business. It took a while, took about a year. And I think I had about 9 ladies on board at that point. And not through choice, but mainly because they kept saying, we just so love working with you. Could you get a job for, like, could you find clients for my friends, my aunt, my mum? So not only was I getting it from the clients, I was also getting it from the women as well. So it kind of grew organically, accidentally, without me really trying in the beginning. And after about a year, I kind of had to sit myself down and have a serious conversation and say, okay, this is actually a business, it seems, and I maybe need to get a bit more organized with it all. But I was still a little bit stumped. And so my way of getting organized was to take on work as a part-time sports coach, to give up my clients so that there was enough work to go around for everyone. There wasn't really enough work, but more work for everybody to go around. And then just to hope that that would appease them. And so essentially I was running a charity, 2 charities at that point, a charity for cleaning and a charity for anti-trafficking. And we kind of limped along in that way for about a year. But pay was always one of my crucial points. It was my non-negotiable. If I'm going to work for X, then I cannot expect these women to go to work for less. And I'd like to tell you a story at this point. I'm going to call her Vanessa. It's not her real name. So Vanessa and her partner came on board as helpers. That's what we call our cleaning colleagues, around 4 years ago. And I had the pleasure of conducting their interview. And we have 2 key questions that we ask early on. So the first one is, what did you aspire to be when you were 20? Because it's my sincere belief that most people don't grow up saying that they want to be a cleaner. Some do, but not the majority of people that come through our business. And the second is, what have you been really proud of so far in your life? And we found that these 2 questions unlock something really rich in each candidate. So in Vanessa's case, I learned that she'd studied HR to a degree level, and that she'd studied accountancy to A level, and that she'd lived abroad in America for a year and was really proud of her English skills and her ability to make it in 2 countries that weren't her home. She was Bulgarian. That she was smart and that she was strategic and ambitious, but that being a migrant in our country made it very hard for her to get a lucky break. Her qualifications didn't count for anything, and so she couldn't access the professional world in the way that she wanted to or she'd envisioned when she was 20. So fast forward a year, we were able to promote her into an operations manager role where she and the business thrived. She was literally brilliant at it. And we were invited, about a year after she was appointed into that role, to speak at a London Living Wage event. And I asked if Vanessa could come along and speak as one of her development goals. It was something she wanted to develop. And she was excellent. But one of the things that struck me, actually really brought tears to my eyes, was a section where she talked about the difference being paid a living wage meant to her and her partner. And she said that it was the difference between eating McDonald's Happy Meals most days and buying fruit and vegetables. And that just simply being paid the living wage as a cleaner meant that her diet became healthier. Consequently, she was able to lose weight, her dental care, all of those things had a knock-on effect in the majority of her life. And I was really stunned by that. It also meant that her and her partner were able to travel home to save some money and then travel home to see friends and family. And they hadn't been able to do that since they'd landed in England. So they'd almost been stranded here for 2 years because they were just in this cycle of working to survive any McDonald's Happy Meals or, low grade meals like that. So I kind of always known it, but that was a stark moment for me where I realised that fair pay and good working conditions are really rare in the cleaning industry. And, obviously now, 8 years down the line, I have a real bank of stories with each woman that comes on board when they see our advert, when they see the rates we're charging, when they see the ethos that we say we have through our interview process, and then they start to live it, that they're bowled over and they constantly say, this, we just don't know how you're doing it. It doesn't seem right. It's come at a cost, though. So for the first 3 years, as I said, I was essentially running a charity. So I had 2 other jobs to pay my rent, and pretty much all the money was being cycled back into the women or into low-level marketing, because I realised then I'd got all these people that I was responsible for, and I really ought to find them some clients. I hit a wall with all of that where I just realised I couldn't do it all. I couldn't juggle 3 jobs. Everything was growing, like the anti-trafficking charity was growing. And at one point they were asking me for more time. The coaching at school grew and they were asking me to be full-time. And this business that actually I wanted to get rid of because I really wasn't good at it was the thing that was growing out of control. And I remember sitting in the anti-trafficking office, literally, I put my head on my desk and cried. I was alone in the office that day. And I cried and cried. I cried for about an hour. I'd also just lost my parents in that year as well. So I was very emotional. And I just remember calling out to God and just saying, I cannot do this anymore. I don't know how to do one. I sold my house to avoid doing the other, which was the teaching alongside all of this. And the anti-trafficking charity is huge and I need help. And I thought that I was asking God for help for that. But actually what he sent was a business coach via a cold call, a business coach that when I asked his prices, made me cry all over again. I'd kind of got the leftovers of the house at that point. And I prayed on it for a whole month. I kept saying to God, please send me like different help. I need different help that doesn't cost this amount of money. And I need different help that isn't about the cleaning business. I need help for the charity. And I was, I think I was reminded of the story of, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's like a man in a boat that's, that feels like he's sinking and is asking for help. He's asking for a cruise line. He's asking for this to come along. He's asking for that to come along. And in the end, God says, but I've given you the help. Like, here is the help. It may not look like what you want or what you need, but this is what I'm offering you. And so I struck a deal with my business coach. I didn't strike a deal. I just basically told him I've got like a couple of £1,000s left of the house that will pay you for, I think it was about 3 months. And I just said, you've got to make my business turn around within 3 months so that it can pay you. And then within a year so that it can pay me. And he did. And so God in his wisdom sent me exactly who I need. And he still jogs along with me today, 5 years later. I often say he will be the last person off the ship if we're going down. So that's one thing I really learned, where God is calling you to be, help does follow, but it doesn't always look as you're expecting it to be. And in that was sacrifice from me, but I think that was about really helping me to fix my gaze on what God was actually asking me to do, because until then, I had a strong belief that it wasn't the cleaning business. So early on with my coach, we had a battle over profit margin. So his big thing was, you're not making any money. Right, let's look at all the margins in the entire business. And one of his first things was, you're paying people too much. And it really shocked him because it was I'd been quite pliable up until then. Like, yes, I'll do anything until we got to that point. That is my non-negotiable. And I said to him, we will shut the business down before we start paying people less. And that really struck him as a non-Christian, actually. It's one of the things that when he's public speaking, he talks about often, and other things that pervade our business. So ethics underpins everything that we do. We've got weekly celebrations, monthly, annual celebrations, where we shout about all the good things that our cleaning colleagues are doing. And we found again that that makes a real difference to them. They love it. They love seeing their name in type. They love being called up for an award for Helper of the Year. They love it that we don't look at them as bottom of the rung. And one of the things that we've got, so now that I've got structure and managers and C-level managers, is we call ourselves the ABC team. And our cleaners are the A team, because without them, nothing happens. Nobody gets paid. And our senior managers are the C team. Yes, we're important, but actually, this kind of upside down form of recognition is really important for us. So the C team are the last people to get a pay rise. The A team are the first people to get a pay rise. And actually it's much easier because we just do it in line with the living wage each year. And only when profit margins are viable do we look at raising our salaries on top of that. And that's come with its challenges as well. So recruitment and kind of sharing that with potential C or B team managers and kind of seeing the penny drop when they realise, oh, we're last in the food chain, is very telling for me. But it means that I've got a team of managers that are passionate about what we do and passionate about the majority women that work with us. So I'm proud of what we've achieved, but we're small. We've got currently a team of 55 helpers, a team of 6 managers, and that's tiny in the cleaning industry. We're making a tiny impact and we've got big, big visions of change. A recent report from another cleaning agency called Clean for Good, it's one of our main running mates in the cleaning industry, and they work with commercial clients, estimated that in 2020, 60% of workers in the cleaning sector still earn less than the living wage. That's massive. And the majority of those, 70% of people in the cleaning industry, are women. The report states that the Low Pay Commission estimate that 1 in 5 cleaners in the UK who were entitled to the minimum wage were actually being paid even less than that by their employer. So remember that the minimum wage is widely recognised to be a poverty wage, which means that, like Vanessa, people are just in that hamster wheel working to live. We share the vision expressed by Clean for Good. However, while they focus on providing commercial cleaning, we really want to provide domestic cleaning to ethically minded individuals in their own home. But more than that, we want to change the landscape of cleaning in the UK. We tried to keep our charges low, but actually we found that we lost in that model. And so we've had to have a real kind of overhaul of how do we keep everyone in the triangle happy? So that's our clients, that's our cleaning colleagues, and that's us as a company. And as devastating as COVID has been, it allowed us to kind of put a pause on the business and to reevaluate and restart in the right way. So to restart with charges that mean we actually gain a profit healthy enough for us to grow the business, grow managers, and grow cleaning colleagues. We factored in, so one of the challenges in the cleaning industry is that most companies engage cleaners on a self-employed basis. It's one of our challenges. It's something we're not happy with. We have lots of things that we do to kind of bolster our colleagues' income. So one of the things that we did was massively raise our prices, but again, a large percent of that raise went to helpers so that they could start to save for holiday periods or sick pay periods or things like that. It's still not enough, and we're working our way up to a price point where we can fully employ our helpers, but we're not there yet. And with the domestic market, that's really challenging because at some point we may end up pricing ourselves out of the market. And so it's a really, you mentioned tension just before I came on, Mark. There is that tension for us as a domestic cleaning agency. What we found is that most of the living wage cleaning agencies have just moved over to the commercial market because it's much easier in terms of price points there. So there are 3 things that we want to change across the landscape. I am wrapping up, sorry. One is this narrative that cleaning is a cheap, low-skilled job and that people can be paid poorly in it. We want to have a national conversation where people become embarrassed to admit that they're only paying their cleaner in London a tenner an hour, and understand that that's actually unacceptable and embarrassing. So it needs to be a big conversation. We want to set standards where we say, if you're engaging a cleaner directly, this is the wage you should be paying and why. You know, this is what they need, an hour living wage, but then there's their travel and their leave and all of those things to factor in. We also want to set another grade where we say, if you're employing through an agency, this is the grade and this is why. So that's a big conversation that we've got to levy across the nation. We also know that during COVID, temporarily, the hospitality sector was put into a lower VAT bracket, paying 5%. And for a long time, I've been saying that this is where low margin industries and low pay industries like cleaning need to sit, because VAT forces people to do all sorts of things. So in the cleaning industry, there's lots of cash in hand, cash under the table transactions. But I believe that if we sat in a lower VAT bracket, it would allow people to actually poke their head above the parapet and pay properly and act properly, so there'd be more governance, but ironically more tax in the coffers as well. So that's an argument that I'm formulating in my head. I'm not an economist, I'm a PE teacher from Croydon, so it's an argument that's taking a while to get my head around, but that's something that I want to lobby government about. And then finally, changes to employment law. The gig economy has really been vilified, but I think that there's something in it that works for everyone. But I think that the law, the employment law around it is not, it's not robust enough. And I want to engage in conversations about how we can create a gig economy employment law that works for everyone in the triangle again, and means that company, client and cleaner all gain and win through that. I'd like to finish with another story, just my last one, and it's the story of Yana. She was helper number 4 in our agency, very positive, bubbly, friendly young woman. She actually cleaned our office for a little while there. She left school with the equivalent of GCSE level education, low grade, she flunked most of those, but her dream was to own her own hair salon. So these are the questions we ask at the beginning. What transpired is that she's got a flair for sales. She's currently our top salesperson with a 95% closing rate. And we supported her to do a foundation course, first of all, and she's now in her 3rd year of a part-time business admin degree. She's no longer in shared accommodation, and her dream of owning her own home and business are really viable. And it's just so exciting to see individuals like that come on and through our business. So my passion, which I think is God-given, is for people, for tackling injustice, and really simply just doing the right thing, even when no one is looking. But these challenges are huge. They're too big for me to tackle alone. And one of the things that I'm currently praying about is people and connections with the know-how to navigate these 3 big issues that I'm trying to tackle for change, so that we can achieve permanent change across the cleaning industry, across the nation. And bring hope for a better life, not just for my colleagues, but for every cleaner in the country. And I'd love to engage in conversations with anyone out there that is interested. Thank you.